Thanks, Bradley. How are you doing? Thank you very much indeed. Okay, folks, difficult to follow that introduction, isn't it? I mean, what an amazing person Bradley is. What a build-up he gives me. Not easy to follow it, is it? Okay, so today I wanted to talk to you about your presentation and your pitching, because, you know, life is changing, the world is changing, and marketing is changing. And really, you know, your biggest and most impressive and most important marketing tool is you. So how you put yourself over, whether it's live or whether it's on video, doesn't matter how it is, that's what's really important when it comes to selling your product or your service. What matters is to sell you. And you know, I recently heard that Cisco Systems say within 3 years, 90% of all the traffic on the internet will be video. Can you imagine that? And now we've got YouTube saying that they expect in the next few months there'll be more searches on YouTube than there are on Google. What does that tell you? It tells you that how you come over, how you look, how you talk, the words you choose and how you use them is now the most important thing in your marketing. So I just wanted to share a few tips and tricks and techniques with you tonight that I've picked up over the years. How did I get started? Well, this is an interesting story. You know, when I was a kid, I was a chronic asthmatic, and one day when I was about 17, the local doctor said, I think we ought to get this boy to do some singing. You know, maybe it'll expand his lungs and it'll help his asthma. And that was the best thing that ever happened to me, you know, because what happened was I went to singing lessons and discovered I had a great big singing voice. Ah! See what I mean? And suddenly I was launched at 17 as a singer. And then I went from there into acting on television, because I was singing on TV, and one day my agent said that her husband was a producer doing a big play, and would I like to do a play on television. And then for years, as well as singing in musicals in the West End, I was actually in things like Minder, Sweeney, Doctor Who, all the things that Bradley's just mentioned. So I was always involved in the voice. And then I became a voice artist. And I spent years at the same time as singing and performing. I spent years stuck in a basement in front of a microphone going, it's so good for your hands, and all that kind of thing. But then, well, one day I was doing a voice for someone and they said, could you produce a radio commercial? So of course I said yes, and I started making loads and loads of commercials on the radio. And then one day somebody said, could you do a TV commercial? And I said yes, because I never say no, I never turn anything down. So now I'm a producer of TV commercials and then corporate video for lots of big companies. And then I got tired of just doing that kind of thing, and I thought, I want to be in movies. I mean, I want to make movies. So I made a little movie, and it was quite successful. And then I went to Hollywood and wrote some scripts for people and came back and taught script writing. And right now I'm actually completing a screenplay that's been commissioned, and I'm also producing the movie, and the director is off in Hollywood trying to get interest in it so we can make it. So I've always been involved in words and the voice. So some of the things I wanted to tell you tonight are about words and the voice. Now, the first thing is, when you're going to make a pitch, tell people about your product or your service, before you actually get there, before you actually meet them, or before you put yourself, you know, on video or on a live webinar like this, you've got to decide, what do I look like? How should I look? Now, I mean, people want to be felt comfortable when you walk into their room. So what's important is, if you think that they're all going to be wearing a suit and a tie, you really should go in a suit and a tie. If you think they're the kind of people who wear a jacket but no tie, then maybe you should go wearing a jacket and no tie. Yeah? And then also, sometimes you might be going to see some guys who are geeks, who are IT guys, who are software people, and they don't want to see a suit at all because they're all in jeans. Then it's okay to go in jeans. But wow, if you go in jeans to see guys in the city who've got the suit and the tie, you're in big trouble. So the other thing is, now we've thought about how we look, we really have to think about how do we sound. Because do we want to go in talking very fast and seeming very eager? Or do we want to go in and seem quite cool and quite in command? Now, also, how do you feel? Are you going to walk into the room as a servant, as it were, or are you going to walk in as a king? Here's a good trick. Before you go into a room to meet important people that you don't know, that you've never met before, don't think that you're going into their room. Think about maybe that you're going into your room and you've allowed them to be there. And that makes a whole difference to how you go in the room and how you greet them. Okay, so that's a little bit about the preparation. But what's the most important thing about the preparation? The most important thing about the preparation, apart from how you look, apart from how you sound, is what are you going to say? Now, before we say what we're going to say, what are we going to say it with? Does that sound weird? What I mean is we're going to say it with our voice. Now, people's voices do strange things if they let them. And here's an interesting thing. You know, when you were a tiny, tiny baby, two of the things you really, really wanted. One was to be able to stand up and walk around like the big people, and the other was you wanted to be able to talk like those big people. So you learned to talk by copying the people around you, which means however they spoke, whatever accent they had, however they delivered words, you, the little kid, you copied that, and you ended up being a vocal clone of your parents or your carers or who was around you when you were growing up. And then when you went to school, you wanted to sound like your mates, didn't you? You didn't want to sound different. So it changed again. Now, what happens with the human voice is we hear it inside our head. You hear your voice in your head all the time, and it sounds okay in there probably. But the voice you hear in your head is not the voice that people outside you are hearing. It's quite different. And I'm sure you've found that if you've tried to record a voicemail for your mobile, that when you play it back you say, is that me? That funny little voice? You see, we have got huge resonating cavities in our head, and our voice reverberates around inside these resonating cavities, and it sounds okay. And so I can talk now, and I can hear everything I'm saying very, very easily, and it's quite loud in my head, and you've been having a little bit of a strain to hear what I'm saying. So think about this. If you think you're talking loudly enough, you're probably not talking loudly enough. And also, if you think that you're talking at the right pace, you're very likely talking too fast. So remember, if you think you're talking too slow, you're probably talking at the right pace for other people to hear what you're saying for the first time and understand it. And if you think you're talking too loudly, you're probably talking at about the right volume. And remember something. You know, or we expect that you know, what you're going to say to people when you're pitching to them. But they don't know what you're going to say. So you've got a thought in your head that you want to get into the heads of the people you're pitching to. But that thought, you have to change it into words, and then you have to push them out towards the people that you want to communicate with. Their ears have got to pick up those sounds and translate them back into words and make a picture the same as the picture that was in your head when you started to speak. And it all takes place in a squillionth of a second. But it's very important to honor the listener. Don't rush. And remember, important words, give them value. And while we're talking about the voice, let's talk about how boring some people are because they just talk on the same one note all the time. Something I do, when I'm helping people with their pitches and helping them with their voice, I get them to speak something, then I get them to sing it, and then I get them to speak it. So we'll do something like, "Hello, how are you? I'm very pleased to meet you." Then when you speak it, remembering some essence of that tune, you get, "Hello, how are you? I'm very pleased to meet you." And it sounds interesting, rather than, "Hello, I'm very pleased to meet you. How are you?" That's really boring. Okay, so that's the voice. What about the power behind the voice? Voices have a very naughty tendency to go up into the nose. You know how a lot of people talk like this? Their voice goes straight up there, doesn't it? And it's very unpleasant because the voice shoots up right from the chest where we've gathered the air to project it, and instead of projecting it out through the mouth, it projects it up into the nasal cavities. And if you don't open your mouth enough, if you don't articulate enough, it's trapped and it goes straight up there because you're not opening your mouth enough, and it's very, very boring. So you've got to open your mouth more than you might have thought you had to. You might have to articulate more than you might think you had to. Here's a tip. When you're watching the news on the television one evening, turn off the sound and watch the articulation. Watch what's happening with the lips and the tongue. You may think that you're over articulating sometimes, but you're not. So what do we know? We have to actually speak slower than we think, louder than we think, get more breath in, project the voice out, and articulate. Sounds a lot, but it makes all the difference. Now let's talk about what powers the voice. What powers the voice is air. Isn't it amazing? Do you know that everything that we use is expensive? Petrol for the car, and gas and electricity for the home, and even the water costs a fortune. Air is free. We don't have to pay for air. So why don't we use lots of it? Most people are walking around not getting enough air in. In fact, most people are walking around and I think they look sort of clinically dead because nothing's happening. Their mouth is just almost closed. When they talk, nothing's coming out. Isn't it amazing? You want to get lots of air in. It's really important to get lots of air in and get it in through the mouth. You cannot get enough air in through the nose. Now, if anyone's out there and they're a yoga fan or a yoga teacher, I know in yoga we're supposed to take the air in through the nostrils and breathe it out through the mouth. But I promise you, after years and years as a singer, I know that you can't get enough air in through the nose to really project the voice. Listen, your tiny hand is frozen. Let me warm it into life. That's pathetic. Get it in like this. Your tiny hand is frozen. Enough of that. But you see what I mean? It's a heck of a difference if you start to breathe in through the mouth. So get lots of air in through the mouth and project the voice with open mouth, lots of articulation, and don't go too fast and don't be too quiet. Now what about what you're going to say and how you're going to say it? Well, I mentioned that I write film scripts, and I use the writing technique for writing film scripts to help people to write a presentation. How do I do that? Well, the thing that we're all taught when we learn to write film scripts is that you have to write a movie in 3 acts. The first act is called the setup. Now that's when you decide whether you like the movie in the first few minutes, and it's where we learn who's the hero, who's the heroine, who's the villain. What kind of movie is it? Is it a comedy? Is it a tragedy? Is it a kids film? What is it? And we learn, where's it taking place? Is it in Los Angeles? Is it in London? Everything is set up until something happens that takes us into the story proper. And that's the second act, the story. And the story proper is about what happens to the hero or the heroine, and of all the things that they have to overcome to maybe rescue the kidnapped child, to avoid the terrorists blowing up Tower Bridge, whatever it is. And they go through all these adventures, and we, sitting comfortably, go through those adventures with them, and we suspend our disbelief. We believe we are that hero or heroine, and we live vicariously through all these adventures. And then we get to the third act, the final act, which we call the wrap-up. And in this final act, the wrap-up, what happens is that all the loose ends are tied together, and eventually the hero and heroine, they walk off together into the sunset, and the villain falls off the top of the building to his death, whatever. Now, the same thing, the same format, that can apply to your pitch or presentation. Whether you're going and eating bacon and eggs at some silly time first thing in the morning and you're only given 60 seconds to make a pitch, or whether you're going into a big arena in front of hundreds of people to talk to them for an hour, it doesn't matter. You can use this same format, and I've taught this to so many people and written so many speeches and presentations for people using this format. We start off with Act 1, the setup. Now the setup is who I am and what I do, and the name of the company, and just a little bit about yourself to set the scene. And then you use the magic phrases that take you into the story proper, because any pitch or presentation, what makes it attractive is a story. People want to hear a story. That's why they watch television. That's why they get hooked on EastEnders. That's why they go to the movies. That's why they get DVDs. That's why we use iPlayer to see the play we missed on telly last night. We love story. Act 2, the story. To get into it in your presentation, you need a phrase like, recently we had a client who, or the other day somebody asked if we could. And that takes you into the story, the main part of your presentation. And the story is how you helped this client, how you maybe not only met their expectations but exceeded them, how you literally saved their bacon. And if you've got a long presentation, if you've got half an hour and up, you can tell more than one story. But there's stories about what your product or service did for your clients. And that story is going to lodge in the brain of your prospect, of the people you're pitching to. But then you've got to wrap it up. So you go into your third act, which is your wrap-up, and what you do there is you're going to just say, so that's the kind of thing we do, and we are this, and the sort of people we like working with are. And when you say the kind of people we like working with, make sure that's the kind of people that you're talking to right now. So there's some little help to you in the way you're going to put your presentation together. So remember the voice. The voice gives you confidence. And remember, putting together a 3-act killer pitch or presentation, because that gives you confidence. And remember to pull yourself together outside a room before you go in to make a pitch. Remember, it's your room, even if you've never been there. It's your room, they're your guests, you're not going into their room. I had a client at Cisco Systems once, and little guy, lovely guy, but he was very, very worried. Even though he was a vice president in Britain, he was always worried about the big boys coming over from the States. So we played a game that I call the wannabe game, where you think of somebody, living or dead, imaginary or fictitious or whatever, who has a quality that you would like to have more of. So I said to this guy, I said, who would you like to be? And he thought for a minute and he said, I like to be the Terminator. What? He wanted to be Arnold Schwarzenegger, bless him. So we worked at it. How would it feel to be the Terminator? And funnily enough, after we'd done that, a few days later I got an email. He said that the big guys had come over from the States, and when he was standing outside the door before he went in to present, he just stood there and went, I'll be back. And he said, I went in and they said it was the greatest presentation I'd done. So it can work. Think who you'd like to be, who's got a quality that you really want more of, that you admire, and become that person. Sounds like acting? Believe me, acting is easy. We actors, we make it seem difficult because otherwise everybody's going to want to do it. It's not difficult. Do you know that you're playing a different role all the time, all through your day? You'll talk to your partner or your spouse before you leave home in the morning, or the kids, or the dog. You'll talk to whoever it is who sells your newspaper at the corner shop. You talk to all sorts of people on the way to work. You talk to people at work. But all the time, you actually change roles because you address those people differently. Your relationship is different. So you can be anyone you want to be. It's really not difficult. So I hope that's been helpful. And what I'd really like to do now is I'd like to hand back to Bradley, and I would like to thank Bradley for giving me this chance to chat to you guys and tell you something that might be helpful about your pitching and your presentation, about your voice, about how you put your pitch together, and how you can all be winners. Bradley, can I hand back to you now? Bradley? Oh, okay. Bradley's gone for a cup of tea.